All right, so you probably at least heard about or possibly watched the debate between neoliberal Destiny and Michael Brooks from the Michael Brooks show, as well as being on the Majority Report. This is a very bigly hyped debate, to use a Trumpian term there. Very bigly hyped debate because Destiny has been going on a lot of like really bad tangents, really bad takes, and it's been really weird and sort of odd to watch, to say the least. And if you've seen all the different things that he said, defending Nancy Pelosi and going after AOC and Ilhan Omar, etc., and a lot of different things sort of in that package. Doing defenses of various, Democratic 2020 candidates and yada yada yada. Right, the list just goes on, honestly. And he also was going after like free college education, yada yada yada. It goes on, okay? It goes on and on. Now, Michael Brooks and Destiny had a debate, okay? And the topic was supposed to be the Trans-Pacific Partnership. My understanding is that Michael actually chose the topic. Now, if you don't know, Destiny's position on the TPP is that he loves the TPP. He's a big fan of free trade, and he thinks that it's something that's very beneficial and that we should, really take part in and spearhead. That's what he thinks. He thinks that we need to basically combat the Belt Road Initiative by China, which basically like they give predatory loans to countries who can't pay them back, and then once they can't pay them back, they have to cease their land or infrastructure to China. So they gain a bunch of influence in other parts of the world. Now, if you actually watch the debate, you know that Michael Brooks spoke a lot. Okay, for me, this is my personal breakdown of what happened. Okay, so obviously, first of all, I want to say obviously I hate Destiny, and Michael Brooks is obviously really dope. But Michael took way too much time. He spoke far too much. He took far too much of a share of the time. And with that, he also kind of rambled on a lot, where he just kind of went on like, just ramble sessions where you kind of lose focus and you kind of forget where he's even at in terms of him talking. So, if there was like a breakdown of the timeshare between Destiny and between Michael Brooks, there's no way that Destiny got more than like honestly 5 to 10% of the time. It was that bad, folks. It was really that bad. And then finally, once they got into a really interesting portion of the debate, which was the TPP, and really getting into it and sort of the arguments being hashed out, Michael's like, you got 5 minutes, I got to dip. So there are a couple problems that there were with this, okay? So, Michael needs to set aside more time for these debates, okay? This was scheduled like a week or plus ahead of time. You've got to have more than an hour for this debate, right? Or if you're not going to have more than an hour for the debate, the first half just needs to be getting into it immediately, because the first half was kind of like oh, this is a good discussion, I don't hate you, and it was just kind of like a, love fest, basically. It was a big waste of time. It was a dud. There was just simply no need for it. It was just kind of filler air. So I didn't like the first half of it because it was just a waste of time. So, but he needs more time for these debates. Now, for him, he's probably going to need, if he's going to talk that much, he's going to need 2 to 3 hours. So you've got to set aside that time, because if you don't, 1 hour simply isn't going to cut it. It's just not enough. An hour simply is not enough for, covering all of that stuff. So Michael needs to know that for next time, he needs to set aside more time for a debate like that, is one thing. B, he's got to let Destiny talk more. And also, I want to say that he also should just cut a lot of the beginning out of where it's like, I like you and I don't hate you and yada, yada, yada. This is just a nice discussion. Just don't even, like, it's just not worth even saying. Just get into the topic, ease into the topic. But, he spoke just far, far too much. And so even though Michael Brooks is right on the issue, and he was actually getting to that point, when he didn't let Destiny speak at all, it made him look bad and destroyed his own cause, which was problematic, obviously. But Michael Brooks had a response to this criticism that I wanted to take a look at here. He was hosting the Majority Report the day after, and someone asked him a question about it. So let's hear him out. He's got quite a long-winded response here. Let's check it out.
Cosmic Yawn. Mike, thoughts on your Destiny debate last night? General consensus seems to be you talk too much. Ooh. Well, let me just say, I think I had really limited time, so I realized in retrospect I should have had more time to do it. I thought some of the conversation was actually really productive. Point taken. If Destiny and I talk again, I'll let him speak more. And I think some people have a very like. I'm a on the merits debater, so there were times where it was like, no, there's actually a real basic structural foundational point here, and it's not being addressed, and I don't want to pivot off into a rabbit hole, and I'm not going to let that happen. So, you know, I think it's tricky because I like and respect Destiny, even though obviously we have strong disagreements and whatever. Uh, so I thought the first part was more of a discussion, was more productive. But I'm also somebody who, and again, I said this on the show. This is not Destiny, but I'm somebody who, I go on cable sometimes and I debate idiots. And part of what you learn is just in terms of debate tactics is like sometimes it's like no, conversation is going to stay focused on what I think are the important grounds of the conversation. And so I'll hopefully talk with him again. I'll let him talk more. I thought part of it was productive. I will say I've seen a lot of people who actually thought that the information was actually really important and interesting and that it went well. And when I see too much whining and complaining from people on social media, not Destiny, but just like people tweeting like, you didn't let him talk enough. That's like okay, that's not a good sign for like if you don't have anything to say about the merits and the substance, if it's just sort of tone whining, then I'm very skeptical.
Yeah, I think people need to realize that when they confine themselves to aesthetic judgments about things, that they're not really saying anything at all.
Precisely. Jay Cool, hey Michael, saw your discussion with Destiny. I think you did very well. Thank you. I think you pointed out how clear Destiny with differences Destiny has with leftists. He could not fathom why labor environmentalists have a role in crafting trade agreements. Yes, and I'm not going to relitigate it because he's not here, but yes, absolutely.
So okay, so that's Michael's response right there. So in some portions of it, he's basically saying like, okay, I understand the criticism, I got it, and I'll basically work to fix that next time around. So he's already got some of the things down that he's got to figure out for next time, fix for next time. He has to fix the time constraints. He needs more time for the debate. He's got to set aside. Either you do one of two things, although you probably need at least a combination of both. You either cut the fat from the first half, which he thinks was productive. From my point of view, my perspective, and Michael has his own opinion, and that's fine. I disagree. I found the first half to be a really big waste of time. Honestly, I don't even really remember what Michael was really saying in the first half. It was kind of just like a sort of like big waste of time. There's nothing significant there whatsoever. It didn't really, attribute or contribute to anything, you know what I'm saying? So that's his perspective. My perspective was it was a complete waste of time. So I think just cut that portion out next time. Just ease into the topic, right? So you can do that and then make it like an hour and a half debate or something. Or if you want to keep in the sort of what I view to be a waste of time, you can, up the debate time to like 2 or 3 hours. So you might have to do a mix of both, or you can just do one or the other. I mean, obviously it's up to you, but so he understands the time constraint portion. I don't agree with him that the first half was productive. And when so they talk about like the issue with it being as for people just talking about the aesthetics of it. If Destiny doesn't get to speak in the debate, like there's no debate, it's just a monologue at that point. So it's problematic because it's a fundamental issue, a structural issue for the debate itself. That's the problem. So like, if you're going to have a debate, it's totally legit to be like, because what substance can you get to if the other person doesn't even really get to say anything? That's the thing. And I hate Destiny. I hate his guts. But, it's just like a fact that that just did not go well in terms of that way, where he barely got to say anything. And, when you don't get to say much, the other side doesn't get to say much, and you kind of just talk. Well, there isn't much to talk about substance-wise. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you talk substance if it's just one person saying one thing? And I thought Michael was correct. I thought that his point about how, the TPP doesn't have, enforceable, labor, panels and environmental panels where it's like, a labor panel of some sort or some sort of labor group can, file a complaint of some sort. It has to be because the way it's currently constructed is a country has to basically sanction another country or sue another country. I think that the U.S. had done that with Guatemala. Um, but that's obviously problematic because, like, is the Trump administration going to go after, labor laws in other countries? Of course they're not. So it's problematic when you don't have them, especially. And also, the other point he was making was that, not having, any sort of labor groups sitting at the table in terms of crafting it is obviously problematic as well because it ends up benefiting corporations. And I thought he was on point there, and I think that he was right when he was saying that Destiny's point that he was trying to get to was kind of veering off, and it didn't really have to do with the fundamental sort of thing. But at the same time, it's also like you kind of have to talk about what he's trying to say there, and you have to debunk that. Like, you have to address his claim and then explain why it's something that is not, on topic or doesn't deal with the fundamental issue, etc., etc. You know what I'm saying? So you've got to have this back and forth. You've got to hear what he's saying, and then you've got to, kind of go at him for, what he's saying, and, do your best of debunking it if that's, what you're trying to do, obviously. So, and the thing is that right after this, David Pakman, who's in a weird, he's in a weird position because he's on, all sides. There's, a big battle going on between Destiny. And there's, he's with, he's, talking to everyone. He's friends with Destiny, he's friends with everyone else. So he goes on to have a conversation, which ends up kind of being a bit of a debate with Destiny. And I thought, they only talked for 15 minutes. By the way, you can watch the debate with David Pakman on David Pakman's channel, and I think Destiny's channel. You can watch the Michael Brooks debate on Destiny's channel. So go watch that if you haven't already. But basically, when it comes to the David Pakman debate, they had a pretty quick debate, but I thought David really held his own, and I thought, to me, he actually addressed a really, fundamental issue to me, which was that, it's you're basically ceasing your national sovereignty for, these profits that are mostly going to end up going to corporations. And it's I'm not really sure I'm down to do that, because it was talking about the Canada versus Ethyl Corp case, where basically Canada banned an additive that, the gas additive, because it was basically a ruse for protectionism to basically, stop them from competing in their market. It's a foreign company, but, my answer to that is, it's a foreign company. If their jurisdiction is Canada, okay? If Canada doesn't want to allow a corporation or business to sell its stuff in their country, do it. That's up to you. It's your goddamn country. That's what you get to choose to do. You have the jurisdiction of your own country, but obviously in these trade agreements, you don't have that. You can't do that. So that is obviously the sort of fundamental issue to me there. And I think David was also saying that basically, it's all the TPP is sort of based in trying to get the benefits for the corporations and the wealthy, of course, because they're the ones who hold power. They're always the ones who are influencing these documents, like the Constitution, for example, influenced by very wealthy people, very powerful people. All these things get influenced by the wealthy and the powerful. So if Michael wants to have a good debate, I think he should look at the way that the Pakman and Destiny debate went and be like, oh, this is how I can have this debate while going back and forth and, really sort of hashing out a really good debate. So I'm curious to see if they speak again. I assume they will, but Michael's a pretty busy dude, so I'm actually not sure when they're going to debate again. I really don't know how long they're going to debate in again, but I hope that Michael takes the criticism 100% as constructive criticism, because this is constructive. Remember, this comes from someone who hates Destiny, to the bone, you know what I'm saying? He's horrible. But it's just a fact, and it's just a constructive critique that you have to take and, take in and be like, oh, okay, don't, I think even, I would really refrain from basically sort of making disqualifiers for certain critiques. These critiques specifically that are sort of coming up, in my opinion, I think that's the best route to go in. I think that if Michael Brooks wants to be in that level of David Pakman and Sam Cedar in terms of high level lefty debaters, you're gonna have to let him speak. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna have to let him speak. You're gonna have a back and forth. That kind of thing. So I think if he wants to rise to that level, that's what he's gonna need to do. And I have faith he's gonna do that, because I think he's a very smart dude. Obviously, he's a very dope dude. And I'm curious to see what happens next time. But with that said, let me know your thoughts on this debate. Who do you think won? Who do you think came on top? Do you have any criticisms of either side? Let me know down below in the comment section. Very curious to hear them.